In the heart of a small, unremarkable town, where the most exciting event was the annual Fall Festival, lived Robert, a seasoned firefighter. His life was a routine of early morning alarms and late-night emergency calls, a rhythm he had grown accustomed to over his 10 years of service. The fire station, a red brick building that stood as a testament to the town's history, was his second home. Inside, the walls were adorned with pictures of past heroes and plaques of commendation. Robert was not just a firefighter, he was a lifeline to the community, a beacon of hope in times of despair. He was known for his bravery, but even more so for his compassion. He had a way of comforting the most distraught victims with his reassuring words and a warm, genuine smile. His team was his family, a diverse group of individuals united by their dedication to saving lives. There was Mike, the jockster who could lighten the tensest situations, Sarah, the rookie with a fierce determination, and Captain Rivera, the seasoned leader who had seen it all. Their camaraderie was the glue that held them together through the toughest times. They shared stories over steaming cups of coffee in the break room, celebrated birthdays with messy icing-laden cakes, and stood shoulder to shoulder in the face of danger. Robert often found himself thinking of them not just as colleagues, but as brothers and sisters. Despite the fulfillment his job brought him, there was a part of Robert that longed for something more. The routine emergencies and small fires were all in a day's work, but he sometimes wondered what it would be like to face a real challenge, something that would test his limits and prove his mettle. It was on a chilly Tuesday evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the town, that the unexpected happened. The fire station's alarm blared, jolting Robert and his team out of their mundane activities. They scrambled to their gear, sliding down the pole to the garage where their fire engine awaited. But this was no ordinary call. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, relaying an address for a fire emergency. Robert froze for a moment. He knew every street and corner of the town like the back of his hand, but this address didn't exist. Confusion swept over him, but he shook it off, attributing it to a possible mistake or prank. The team exchanged puzzled looks but decided to respond. They couldn't take the risk of ignoring a call, no matter how dubious it seemed. The fire engine roared to life, a siren piercing the tranquil evening as they set off towards the mysterious location. As they approached the supposed address, what they saw defied all logic. There, amidst a familiar landscape, stood a building engulfed in flames, a building Robert had never seen before. It loomed ominously, its windows glowing with the fierce fire within, as if it had materialized out of thin air. The team was stunned into silence. This was impossible, yet the blazing inferno before them was undeniably real. As the reality of the situation set in, Robert felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the challenge he had unknowingly yearned for. With a determined nod to his team, they began their battle against the phantom blaze, unaware of the surreal ordeal that awaited them. The fire raged before them like a living beast, its flames licking the night sky with an insatiable hunger. Robert and his team sprang into action, unraveling hoses and strategizing their attack on the inferno. The building, an enigmatic structure of old bricks and peeling paint, stood as a silent challenge to their skills and bravery. As they doused the flames with powerful jets of water, something peculiar happened. The water seemed to evaporate before it even touched the fire, as if repelled by an unseen force. Murmurs of confusion spread among the team, but Robert, driven by a mix of curiosity and duty, pushed them to continue. The fire's behavior wasn't the only oddity. Strange sounds emerged from within the building, a series of soft whispers and muffled cries that were almost drowned out by the roar of the fire. They were unsettling, and some of the team members cast nervous glances at each other, questioning whether they had really heard them. Robert, however, felt a pull towards the building, the compulsion to uncover its mysteries. Ignoring the warnings of his own rational mind, he decided to enter the building. He needed to ensure there were no trapped victims inside, he told himself, but deep down, he knew his reasons were more complex than that. Donning his breathing apparatus and signaling to his team to cover him, Robert approached the fiery maw of the building. The heat was intense, a wall of scorching air that threatened to push him back. But he persevered, stepping into the belly of the beast. Inside, the building was a labyrinth of confusion. The layout made no sense, with corridors leading to dead ends and rooms that seemed to shift and change as he moved through them. The flames danced around him, almost playfully, as if aware of his presence. The whispers grew louder, now joined by faint ghostly visions of people figures that seemed out of place, dressed in clothes from different years, their expressions etched with fear and sorrow. They flickered in and out of existence, never lingering long enough for Robert to understand their purpose. Time seemed distorted within the burning building. Robert's watch ticked erratically, sometimes racing ahead, other times freezing. The flames themselves moved in unnatural patterns, defying the laws of physics. Robert pushed deeper into the building, driven by a mix of fear and fascination. Each room revealed more bizarre phenomena, objects floating mid-air, walls that pulsated with a strange energy, and mirrors that reflected scenes of other times and places. Despite the surreal environment, Robert's training kept him grounded. He searched methodically for any sign of life, calling out for survivors. But the only responses were the eerie echoes of his own voice, and the unsettling whispers that seemed to follow him. As he ventured further, the building's mysteries deepened, and Robert realized that this was no ordinary fire. It was a gateway to something far beyond his understanding, a puzzle that beckoned him to solve it. And at its heart, in the depths of the inferno, lay the key to his secrets. The further Robert delved into the heart of the burning building, the more the line between reality and illusion blurred. Walls appeared to breathe, their surfaces undulating like the chest of a sleeping giant. The air was thick with a smoky haze that twisted into ghostly shapes, whispering secrets of forgotten times. In one room, Robert stumbled upon a scene that defied explanation. A dining table set for a feast, untouched by the inferno raging around it. The food, perfectly preserved, seemed to beckon him to sit and partake in the ghostly banquet. He shook his head in disbelief, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. He pressed on, each step taking him deeper into a maze of confusion and terror. Rooms changed behind him, sealing his path back and urging him forward into the unknown. The heat was oppressive, a suffocating blanket that threatened to consume him. His firefighter's instinct screamed at him to turn back, but something unexplainable urged him onward. As he ventured through a corridor lined with antique portraits, their eyes seemed to follow him, filled with silent accusations and unspoken pleas. Whispers swirled around him, voices of the past mingling with those of the present, creating a symphony of despair. In one room, Robert encountered a chilling sight. The classroom frozen in time, with spectral children sitting at their desks, their eyes hollow, their expressions frozen in a moment of terror. They seemed unaware of the fire, their ghostly teacher continuing a lesson that would never end. With each step, the building revealed more of its nightmarish secrets. Shadows moved of their own accord, detaching from their sources and creeping along the walls like living things. In one room, the shadows coalesced into the shape of a large, hulking figure, its form flickering and shifting, never fully revealing itself. Robert's heart pounded in his chest, a frantic drumbeat echoing the chaos around him. The building was alive, a creature of fire and shadow, feeding on his fear and confusion. But amidst the terror, a part of him was exhilarated. This was the challenge he had unknowingly craved, a test of his courage and resolve. He pushed forward, driven by a determination to uncover the truth of this place. With each room he entered, the building seemed to react, its interior morphing and changing, as if trying to communicate with him. It was a puzzle, a riddle wrapped in flames, and Robert was determined to solve it. But as he ventured deeper into the heart of the building, the true nature of the fire revealed itself. It was not just a physical blaze, but a manifestation of something far more sinister. And at its core lay a truth that connected Robert to the building in a way he could never have imagined. The deeper Robert ventured into the inferno, the more the building seemed to unravel the fabric of his reality. The flames danced with a malevolent grace, casting eerie, shifting shadows that played tricks on his eyes. Each room he entered was a new world of horrors, echoing with the remnants of lives long lost to time. In a room shrouded in darkness, Robert encountered something that stopped him dead in his tracks. Amidst the chaos, a child sat quietly on the floor, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She was an anomaly in this place of despair, a serene presence amidst the turmoil. The child looked up at Robert, her gaze piercing through the smoke and fire. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice a haunting melody that resonated with an eerie familiarity. Robert knelt before her, the heat of the fire forgotten. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The child smiled, a gesture that was both comforting and unsettling. "I am a memory," she replied, "a fragment of what this place once was. And you, Robert, are the key to its existence." Confusion and fear warred within Robert. "What do you mean?" he asked, his heart racing. The child's eyes seemed to look right through him, seeing into the depths of his soul. "This building, this fire, it is born of your past, a past you have long forgotten. A tragedy that you have buried deep within your mind." Robert's mind reeled at her words. How could this be? He had no memory of this place, no connection to the horror that surrounded him. "The fire is a reflection of your inner turmoil," the child continued, "a manifestation of the trauma you have yet to confront. It is both your prison and your salvation." Robert struggled to process her words. Memories began to stir within him, shadows of a past he had locked away. The building, the fire, it all started to make sense in a way that terrified him. The building shook violently, its structure beginning to collapse under the weight of the flames. The child's form wavered, flickering like a candle in the wind. "You must face your past, Robert," she urged, her voice fading. "Only then can you free yourself from this nightmare." With a final, desperate look at the child, Robert turned and ran. The building was falling apart around him, a physical manifestation of his own crumbling defenses. He knew what he had to do. He had to confront the truth of his past, a truth that had been hidden in the flames of his own subconscious. As he raced through the collapsing corridors, the memories flooded back. A house fire, a loss so profound that he had buried it deep within himself. A family he couldn't save, a guilt that had consumed him. The building was a mirror of his own mind, a labyrinth of his repressed memories. And now, he had to face the heart of the blaze, the epicenter of his hidden trauma. It was a journey into the depths of his soul, a battle against the demons of his past. And only by facing them could he hope to emerge from the flames. Robert raced through the crumbling building, the memories flooding his mind with each step. The heat was suffocating, the smoke a blinding veil, but his resolve was unwavering. He could see now that this phantom building was a manifestation of his deepest fears and unhealed wounds. The memory that had been locked away for so long now came crashing through the barriers of his mind. He remembered the fire from his childhood, the one that had taken his family's home and almost their lives. He had been a child then, helpless and terrified. That night had sparked his desire to become a firefighter, to save others from the horror he had experienced. But with it, he had also buried the guilt and pain deep within him, never fully confronting it. As he navigated the labyrinth of his psyche made real, the building seemed to respond to his epiphany. The flames, once menacing and wild, now took on a different quality, almost guiding him. The spectral visions of people in strange rooms began to fade, replaced by a clarity and focus that propelled him forward. He found himself in a room that mirrored the living room of his childhood home. The fire here was different. It didn't consume, but rather illuminated the room with a soft, warm glow. In the center of the room stood the child he had met earlier. She no longer appeared as a spectral vision, but as a guiding light, a symbol of the innocence he had lost and the truth he needed to face. "The fire never left you, Robert," the child said softly. "You carried it within you, letting it burn away parts of yourself." Robert felt a wave of emotion crashing over him. The guilt, the fear, the sense of loss, it all made sense now. He had been fighting fires all his life, but the hardest one to extinguish was the one inside him. With a newfound understanding, Robert watched as the flames in the room slowly receded, revealing a door that had been hidden by the fire. He knew instinctively that this was his way out, his path to redemption and healing. As he approached the door, the child's voice echoed one last time, "Find peace, Robert. Let the fire within you light the way, not consume you." Stepping through the door, Robert found himself outside, the night air cool and refreshing against his smoke-stained face. The building, the phantom of his tormented past, crumbled behind him, disappearing into the night as if it had never existed. His team rushed towards him, their faces etched with concern and relief. They had seen the building collapse, but they had not seen the journey Robert had undergone within. Robert looked back at where the building had stood, now just an empty lot under the starry sky. He had faced his past, embraced it, and emerged stronger. The fire inside him had been tamed, not extinguished, a source of strength rather than destruction. He was ready to move forward, carrying the lessons of that night with him. Back at the fire station, Robert's team gathered around him, bombarding him with questions. Their faces showed a mix of awe and disbelief, as Robert recounted his surreal experience in the burning building that no longer existed. Captain Rivera listened intently, his experienced eyes studying Robert closely. "Sounds like you've been through hell and back," Captain Rivera finally said, his voice a mix of concern and respect. "But there's no trace of the building now. It's like it vanished into thin air." Robert nodded, understanding the skepticism in his team's eyes. He knew what he had experienced was beyond normal comprehension. It was a personal journey, a confrontation with his past that no one else could fully grasp. In the days that followed, Robert found himself changed. The burden of his childhood trauma, which he had carried for so long, had lifted. He felt lighter, more at peace with himself. His team noticed the change too. There was a new depth in his eyes, a sense of calm and understanding that hadn't been there before. One evening, as Robert was organizing his locker, he came across an old photograph he had tucked away. It was a picture of his childhood home, taken before the fire that had changed his life. As he looked at the photo, he realized something astonishing. In the background, partially obscured by trees, was the building that he had seen engulfed in flames. The building that had housed his deepest fears and memories. It was a confirmation of the reality of his experience, a tangible link to the journey he had undertaken. Robert understood then that the building, though no longer physically present, had been a real part of his past, a symbol of the trauma he had repressed. The story of the phantom blaze became a legend among the firefighters in the town. Some believed it, while others dismissed it as a stress-induced hallucination. But for Robert, it was a pivotal chapter in his life, a turning point that had allowed him to confront and overcome his inner demons. As he continued his work as a firefighter, Robert carried with him a new perspective. He approached each call not just as a duty to save others, but as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, the power of confronting one's past, and the importance of finding closure.